Hello, it's another Sunday, and you're welcome to the Way Show with Wole. That's my name, and well, as usual, my partner Yomi is behind the scene, making sure this is coming to you loud and clear wherever you're watching us this evening. So it's Sunday, the 13th of September, and uh, my usual question is, how was your week so far? And it's a new week actually we're entering into. So hopefully it's going to be a much better week than we had last week. Before I go further, just remember, you know the drill. Subscribe to the show, like our page, also on Instagram, and obviously all the episodes that we've loaded on YouTube. Please just like it. And if you're watching for the first time, don't forget to please click on the notification button. And so when we load new pictures or new episodes, you'll be the first to know. Um, like I said, it's a Sunday, and it's our usual thing. It's the Way Show live on YouTube. So today I have a special guest all the way from Nigeria who will be talking to us about the media itself. So media as an industry. So he is a media career development specialist and also a veteran journalist coming out of Nigeria. His name is Lekan Otufodunrin. So he's a senior colleague. So guys, if you're watching, if you don't mind me, I'll just refer to him as editor most times because as a journalist, we tend to do that. And if you hear me say editor most times when I ask the questions, I'm talking about our guest. Okay. So without much ado, let me welcome Lekan Otufodunrin to the show today. Thank you for joining us, editor. How's been your day so far? Okay, I think we seem to have a connection problem. It's a live show. Don't forget that. So we are trying to obviously connect to our guest in Nigeria all the way. We're broadcasting from London, so we're trying to establish a perfect connection so we can just go ahead with the show. So, editor, if you can hear me, um, okay. So, you're. Hi there. So, sorry about that. So, we're just trying to re-establish connection with our guests on today's show. So, like I said earlier, Yomi behind the scene, who is our technical guru and also a co-producer of the show, is trying his best to get in touch, reconnect us back to the grid, back to Lagos, Nigeria, where our special guest is from we're interviewing from today. Um, Remember, like I said, it's a live show, and these things happen sometimes, especially when we trying to talk to people from that part of the world. So, what have we got today? A journalist, a media career development specialist. His name Lekan Otufodunrin. One time was with the Nation's newspaper in Nigeria. That's one of the biggest newspapers in that part of the world. So we will try and establish contact with him as soon as possible. well, the power of technology or the razzmatazz. So yeah, we're back on to the Way Show, and if you can hear me, editor, it's nice to have you on the show today. Can you hear me, please? I think the connections over there is still a bit dodgy, but we'll try as much as possible to do what we can do to make sure the show goes on today. As soon as we get a clear signal, um, all the way from here to Nigeria, we will try and establish that and continue on the show. So the topic today is actually we're focusing on the media itself. Especially media in the developing world as compared to media practice in developed world where we are at the moment. So obviously there's so much disparity at the moment. Part of it is what you are actually experiencing now, the issue of, well, having a very strong um, connectivity, to make sure that the media and of course the journalists itself themselves do their work perfectly well. I mean, you sometimes wonder if things like this that we usually take for granted in this part of the world, I mean, broadband, good Wi-Fi, good connection, it's okay here, but back in developing Africa, it's kind of like, like I said, dodgy, not up to scratch. So you then wonder, how do they get to do their jobs as perfect as it should be. Um, how the journalists in Africa win numerous awards, on the world stage. So all this we put through to our guest today. Thank you for coming back to the show. Thank you, editor, for joining us
Yeah,
on the show. How are you
yeah,
today?
yes, I'm very fine.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us once again. So we're just
Yeah,
talking about the issue of facilities. First and foremost, as a journalist, you've been in this profession now for years. You transitioned from being a journalist to a media career development specialist. And how's the journey been for you? I mean, what has been uh, the changes you've encountered from being a journalist to what you are at the moment?
well, once again, thank you for this invitation. I really appreciate this opportunity to share with you. So, we're talking about what the experience has been like. Well, it's been interesting. I've been a journalist since 1985, and those are far back when there was no teacher, so to say. I used to tell young journalists today that when I was in the university, there were no computers, there were
Mm,
only typewriters. So you are not about email or whatever. So we moved from that era where it was purely traditional, era when I used to be a reporter for Punch newspaper in Abeokuta. And if I was sending a story to Lagos, I had to dictate every word, every word. Somebody is sitting back in Lagos and you need to dictate every word. And if they can't hear one word, to spell every word. So if you are going to spell Ogun State, you spell Ogun, Oscar God, Uniform November, just for somebody to write OGUN. So that is where we are coming from. But thankfully, digital has come, although it's very disruptive, but
mm,
notwithstanding, it has changed the stuff, journalism. Now, there's a lot of opportunity. We used to say that if you're a journalist and you want to start your own platform, you need to be a big, deep pocket. But today is
mm,
not so. So there are a lot of opportunities. It's disrupting, like I said, because it's also disrupting to the extent that uh, the traditional media is not like before. Yeah, people are
mm,
not buying like they used to buy newspapers, but today we have moved on, and we need to use what we have. So journalism is more interesting. You could like what we are doing now wouldn't have been possible many years ago, but here we
yeah.
are. We're able to do this, and more people are able to use what is available to showcase their talent. It's very
Mm,
liberating. It's disruptive, but very liberating for people to be able to showcase their talent. So I think it's been a long journey, and we are not sure where we are going because digital keeps changing every day. You never know what's going to happen next. But as a media practitioner, we need to be ready to be able to key into what is available.
mm. And obviously, I do fall into that category of practicing when it was, permit me to use these words now, the dark days. I remember when we used to type on typewriter, we print it out and we cut and paste. and
Yeah.
obviously take it to typo
The
and
type
what have
of
you. Exactly. So I'm very proud to share that, being part of that school, old school, and it was good. And obviously, it was very exciting because quite a lot of us saw people like you who
mm,
obviously started in the 80s and we started in the 90s thinking, all right, we want to be like so and so and so person who is
mm.
obviously a senior in the profession, is doing well in the profession. We want to be like that. So, in your case, who were you like looking up to when you started journalism?
Well, I can always tell people nobody in my family was a journalist, so I had no role model within my family. But somehow I could say that my father was somebody who inspired me to become a journalist to the extent that I used to buy newspapers for him a lot. And when he's through with reading those newspapers, I take time to read them. And gradually I developed interest. And so I found interest with the word. Uh, by the time I became a journalist, in terms of role model, maybe the people I started working with, so to say. I mean, I started working in a Punch newspaper where I had Mr. Ademola Oshinobi, who is still the current MD of the Punch newspaper. I mean, that was somebody who I really, I remember when he interviewed me for that job, he said, young man, you can do this job. And even when I was having that myself, I was very encouraged. So I would say people like Mr. Ademola Oshinobi. And I remember I used to read people like Dele Olojede, the first Nigerian to win the Pulitzer Prize. I remember vividly that when I went for internship at the Concord newspaper, the very first day I walked into that office, there was nobody around. And there were no phones to call anybody. And there was a little tremor somewhere in Ijebu in Ogun State, and they needed somebody to go and cover. And here was I from school, just green, so to say, and they were asking me, "You have to go and do this. The driver will take you there. This is what you do." And as I was preparing to leave, he came in. Mr. Dele Olojede came in, and I followed him. So right from day one, I followed him, and I saw him at work, and I was very, very impressed. And so I can say people like that really inspired me. And along the line, every other person came at various times of the year. I mean, now I'm a media career development person. I'm looking at people like Mr. Taiwo Obi, who's been very inspiring. I'm looking at people like Mr. Richard Akinola. So quite a number of people, depending on the time we're talking about. But by and
Mm,
large, people inspired me. I saw people at work. I remember when I started at Abeokuta, I was the youngest person who was a correspondent. But I had people like the late Tayo Awotusin, who was a
mm,
correspondent even then, but well read, and you could really learn a lot from that. So I would say those are the people that inspire me. And different times, other people came along.
mm. Um, you are now you know, a media career development specialist. What made you transition from being a journalist to this new role? And the other thing is, we now have all sorts of journalists. Even people that have not been trained, that are probably not schooled in journalism, getting just picking up the paper and picking up a pen or the phones and sticking it into someone's face to ask interview and do interviews and without that much training. Would you say that's probably why you have now transitioned from being a journalist to get these people adequately trained to know the job properly?
Uh, Let me say that I was actually inspired to start this many years ago while working at the Punch. I I noticed that training was not emphasized. You know, here was I started as a reporter in Punch. I never went for my first media training until I had been become a news editor myself. Almost 10 years.
Hmm.
Training was not emphasized. And along the line, I saw there's a place called Thompson Foundation. It used to be in Cardiff. It's now in London. There were a training school. I saw the newsletter, and I was really inspired by the newsletter about the place where journalists go for continuous training. And I applied to go for this training. Thankfully, I went for training. 3 months, all expenses paid in Cardiff in UK. And I came back and I said I was going to replicate what I saw in Cardiff. So that experience was really, really helpful. And so from there, I started seeing myself as a development person. I was paying more attention to providing what you call in UK they call it mind the gap when you are entering training. So I was trying
They
to
train,
mind the
yeah.
gap. Yes. I was trying to mind the gap in journalism because I was finding it difficult to find that people were working and they were not getting training, and digital was coming. So many things were changing, So that was what really inspired me. And at every stage, I was experimenting what I could do, even though I didn't have an organization myself. So my experience at Pointer Institute and attending some other trainings locally. And years later, I wanted to go to Pointer Institute. Pointer Institute is in Florida. It's a school for training for journalists. Many years later, I went to Florida. So with those kind of a combined experience, and having spent more than 30 years of being a journalist, being a traditional journalist, ended up my last 6 years at the Nation as an online editor. So I became a very fully digital person. I thought that I had the benefit of both experience and I could share it with people. Along the line, I was also teaching part-time in the University of Lagos, Nigerian School of Journalism. And for me, it was not only training, it's about mentoring. It's about helping people to understand themselves. Because here was a profession where you put your all, and many people are frustrated. Whereas we need journalists who are very inspired to do this job. So I felt that we need to provide that kind of mentoring. And after spending more than 30 years, I said, it's time to really focus on this and provide a gap. Because even though you have media NGOs, what most of them do is that they provide training depending on the funding that was available. But between those training and whatever, what happened? So our unique brand is to see how we help people to develop a career that is sustainable. They are inspired to do this job and do it very well. And with digital, we are helping the generation of analog journalists to transition. Sometimes it's difficult to teach an old person digital. So if you find somebody who didn't experience analog, teaching somebody who is analog digital, sometimes there's a disconnect. But because we have been part of that era and we are here, we're able to show the link, and because we know where they are coming from. And so that is one of my main emphasis, helping journalists to transition and even helping the people who are already in digital to understand that there's a journalism part of this thing. It's not enough to know digital, you need to understand the journalism. And that goes to the point you are making, that not everybody can claim to be a journalist. You can be a writer, you can be a content provider, but journalism is a profession. He has his own ethics. He has his own tool of trade. And except you understand it, you may just be doing so many funny things. People do so many things these days. They just write all kind of things, and they don't respect people's privacy. And all those things are things that are really very worrisome. So those are the kind of things we are pointing out people to. We are reminding them there is a way to practice journalism, and except you do it the right way, you may not be doing what you are doing. You may just be what the professor at the University of Lagos called an information trafficker. If anybody can share information, but not everybody is a journalist because he has his role. There's ethics, there are things you can do, there are things you are not. That's what we call off record. There are things that you can put on record. There are things that you even see that you must not report, even though you are seeing it, because it can be very offensive to some other people. So that's the thing that I think is very, very important.
And so we kind of like have different, just like you said, people who do not even know the tools of the trade, setting up online
platforms,
newspaper and what have you, and platforms and everything. And obviously, some of the times they fill it with fake news and things like that. How's that really disrupted the the flow of news one, and how's that also disrupted the need to practice proper journalism, especially in Nigeria as itself? Because I suppose this is part of why the government and obviously the National Assembly decided to introduce the social media bill and what have you. So would you say those kind of people, not knowing the tools of the trade, are actually giving journalists a bad name?
yes, I mean that's very true. Talking about giving journalism a bad name, unfortunately, we are in an era when anybody can publish. And like we said, we don't want to take anybody's rights, fundamental rights to publish. We don't want to take it away. But notwithstanding, we want people to stay within the limits of their bounds. So if you are sharing information, realize that there are things that you are not supposed to share. So it's important, like we are saying, that you must understand that if you want anybody, I mean, like we said, anybody is just setting up their platform and they call it journalism. So people should not call anything they set up as journalism. So the fact that you are setting up an online platform does not mean that you can call yourself a journalist. You can share information. But if you must practice journalism, there are rules of engagement. Journalism is based on trust. The people hear you and they trust you. They want to be sure that what you're hearing from you. And you talk about fake news. The reason why fake news is there is because people can't differentiate between the fact and fiction. People hear all kinds of information. As a journalist, you are trained to say that when in doubt, leave out. When you get information, you cross check, you cross check, you cross check until you are very, very sure. You don't take every word for it. You
Mhm.
even witness an event, you want to find out, is it true? That is the other side. There are many other sides to a story. So because of that, you need to understand that not everybody can. So fake news is a big problem. It's very destructive. It's giving us a bad name. And all we are saying is that people should begin to differentiate between the people who are purveyors of fake news and the people who have information that is very, very genuine and valid. So people must know that there are fake news. And how do you know that something is a fake news? There's some of
Mhm.
information when you see them, you know that these things have raised a question. There are all kinds of false claims that people make. Unfortunately, in the area of news, even the best of information, the false information can be presented in a way that you make it believable. But the question is it a reputable site? That means if you are looking for information, go to a reputable site, go to organizations that have an history behind them. Don't look for Twitter handles that don't have an history behind them. This is very, very important. So it's a major concern. We are not advocating that people are coming about. Do you need to control? Well, without controlling, we are not asking. It may be difficult to control because if you try to control, you may be circumcising people's rights. But we are saying that play according to the rules. And thankfully, there are other laws that can be used against people who publish fake news. So they must be aware that if you promote fake news, there are all kinds of laws that can be used. And already in Nigeria, people have been arrested for publishing information. But our warning to people that even on WhatsApp, people receive information and they just forward. It's very, very dangerous. So again, back to the question is that journalism is a profession that has its own rules of engagement. And if you must practice it, know that even when you are not a member of NUG, you are sharing information. If you must learn journalism, please go and learn it. As we speak, there's even a current debate in Nigeria, which is very, very interesting. I don't know whether it's appropriate for this occasion. So we have an institution where Mr. Dele Momodu had published, uh, had gone to see Dino Melaye in his
Melai, yeah.
house and shown. And people are asking, you didn't ask him where he got that money. And in his rejoinder, he said it was not his business to ask him. That is a show journalist. Well, people are saying, well, I mean, you can't deny that Mr. Dele Momodu has started journalism in his own way. But people are saying journalism also requires some level of trust. Here is a man who has not done anything that we know. He has not established any industry, whatever. He's showcasing this kind of wealth. The simple thing is to ask this question. So people need to ask questions. Journalism is about holding people accountable. It's
Yeah.
about ensuring that people respect people's trust. So again, we are saying that journalism must be practiced this because people are expecting us to ask the proper question. People are not expecting us to just showcase people, even when we have reason to suspect that what they are doing is not right.
Hmm. I'm actually very interested, and I was very happy you brought out the issue of Mr. Dele Momodu, obviously, who was a very senior colleague, and Senator, ex-Senator Dino Malai, because obviously caught that in news quite recently, and coming to issues like that. Quite recently, too, we had an issue with former Minister of Aviation in Nigeria, Femi Fani-Kayode, and his
And the
unfortunate incident, yeah, with
yes,
Charles of Daily Trust. What's your take on that? I mean, people uh, people on this side of the ocean, on this side of the world, tend to, especially when you're practicing journalism, nothing is off limits.
yes,
Nothing is off limits. You are there to put you are in a public position, and when you're in a public position, you are open to the public. So nothing is off records. We ask you questions, and you're meant to obviously answer the question. You can answer it tactfully, that's up to you, or you are meant to answer this question. But the reverse is the case. most often in Nigeria. Why is this so? Is it because of the lack of education or professionalism on the part of those journalists, or are these guys in public position not really? They don't really understand what it means by me being a public servant.
Well, I think this is a very peculiar problem that has to do with public officers who don't understand that journalism is supposed to hold them accountable.
Mm.
What happened in the Femi Kankara incident was very unfortunate because it's not something that has happened recently. But I think it just went off limit. I mean, the journalist asked a very valid question. You are not holding any position in government. You are not a governor. You are going on inspection tour. And you are saying, how are you doing this? Which is a legitimate question. In fact, if that press conference ended without that question being asked, people would have been asking, what kind of journalist do you have? And
Yeah.
here is it that asked that question, and the big man, so to say, just went on a tirade and was calling all kinds of names. Well, he has said he had apologized because it was very clear that what he did was very, very wrong. So we can't accuse the journalists of not asking the right question. They have asked the right questions. The problem is that sometimes public officers think that they are supposed to be, their ego is supposed to be managed at such occasion. So we have asked the question. So the journalists know they are right, they know what to ask, and they ask that kind of question. But the problem is that people don't want to answer. People don't want to be held accountable. So that kind of incident should not. Thankfully, people rose up, the profession rose up, and he was called to order, and he apologized. Even though in his apology, he was still saying that the question was a mischievous question. There's nothing like a mischievous question. The question is, how do you answer them? You could have said, like we said, I don't want to answer, and that would have been fine. But if you are going to answer that question, then answer that question. If you are going around saying you are inspecting projects, you must be able to account for it, and that's what the journalists have done. So I think without being emotional, journalists in Nigeria understand what they're supposed to do. They're asking the question, but politicians are dodging this thing. But we will not give up. We'll keep asking the question, and we hope that we'll answer. We have seen other political officers who have answered these kind of questions because they know that they are supposed to answer it. So I think that that is also a lesson to politicians in Nigeria that they should be prepared for hard questions. And it's a problem if they don't know how to answer it. If you're in public office, be ready, be accountable, and because we keep asking you that question. Any journalist what is sought to ask proper questions. If you listen to public officers, when they make claims, we're in the era of fact checking. Even when they are making claims, you should be able to ask them what you are saying is not right. Sorry, just adjusting my head.
Okay. All right.
So we're in the era of fact checking. We're in the era of fact checking. They must know that they cannot make claims and get away with it. We're going to fact check them. Even when they are not on stage, we're going to call them back and say, look, you make this claim yesterday, it is not right. The fact that we have is not true. So that is being done. We have a situation where in Nigeria now that a broadcast is on, and 30 minutes after, somebody has done the fact check to say, look, that claim was not right. And that is the best that is coming out of Nigerian journalism. So it's not because we don't know what to do, it's just because we have officers who don't want to be accountable.
This
Yeah.
question I want to ask you: how dangerous it is practicing journalism in Nigeria?
Yeah.
I mean, we've had
Yeah.
instances of very recent case of Precious Owolabi from Channels Television, who was shot
Okay.
in Abuja, and obviously before that time we had NHA Akrogo also of Channels TV that was shot in 2012. So, and then we saw what happened, and thankfully no life was lost, but there was over the top insults regarding
Yes.
Ayo Charles. So
Yeah.
how dangerous is it being a journalist in Nigeria, you know, especially when you're covering hotspots?
Well, it's part of it. It's part of the. I'm trying to find the right word for it now. I mean, as a journalist, we are trained to prepare for circumstances
Yes.
like this. So it could happen. I mean, everywhere in the world, journalists get hit sometimes. So we can't say journalism. I mean, we can't say journalism cannot save Nigeria. Well, there are protective. These days, we are even teaching ourselves to know how to be security conscious. Because sometimes when you find yourself in a crossfire, When you are covering a riot, for example, the man who is rioting sometimes don't distinguish between journalist and the other person that is trying to attack, or policemen and things like that. So I think by and large, it's part of the challenge of the profession. But journalists are trained to be secure. And we are telling whoever is concerned to know that they must also know that when journalists are at incidents like this, they need to also be careful. The Precious Owolabi thing was very unfortunate. He was standing at a position where he was hit by a stray bullet, and there are and counter claims about who was responsible. But again, it also goes back to the question about ensuring the safety of journalists by employers. The people who employ them must also ensure. Journalists need to be insured. Unfortunately, in Nigeria, journalists are not insured. Many organizations are even struggling to pay salaries, not to talk about insurance.
Hmm.
So that is a big problem. So the issue is that journalists need to be insured, and journalists must also be trained to know how to protect themselves. Just a few days ago, I participated in an online training about safety for journalists, and one of the counsel was that even as a journalist, know that your safety is your first priority. You need to be alive to tell the story. So you must also be very security conscious. When you are going to a place, you need to do some checkup about where you are going, and when you are there, look for the landmarks and be sure that you are not in any position to be for your life to be endangered. So your priority should also be you want to tell the story, but you must allow to tell that story. So that is very, very important. But we're saying that we journalists can be more protected if the employers provide the necessary protection. You don't send people to places where their life can easily be endangered. So it's very, very important. By and large, the environment is safe, but once in a while, when you are going to enemy territory, you also need to be very prepared. For example, if you are going to some parts of Nigeria now, you need to be sure. You need protection. Because, for example, when some foreign journalists come to Nigeria and they say they go to some of these places, we are aware that apart from the fact that they're covered by insurance, when they're even in Nigeria, they get police protection. We've seen CNN journalists go to some part of Maiduguri with military escort. How many journalists are provided that kind of escort in Nigeria? So that's the thing that we're talking about. Journalists in Nigeria are as good as anyone anywhere in the world, but they need that kind of ambience, that kind of protection to be able to be at their maximum best. If you don't provide that kind of ambience, people are going to be very reluctant.
We've been receiving some comments from our people watching us, and I'm just going to read some of the questions for you,
Yes,
and if
yes,
you can, please, editor, to answer.
yes.
So, we've got Molad said, someone who has never studied journalism at the university or higher institution, but suddenly develops interest in it. What advice would you have for them?
Well, my advice is if you want to become a journalist, like I said, journalism is a profession. Unfortunately, the rules is not as tight like when you want to become a medical doctor or an accountant. But it is still required that you go and learn. So if you didn't study journalism, for example, you can do a diploma course. In fact, for you to be registered as a member of the NUG, you must do a minimum of a diploma course, and there are courses available. Because when you go for that course, you are trained to understand the rudiment. It's one thing to be able to write, it's another thing to be able to practice journalism in the way it's supposed to be practiced. So my advice, because the truth is that we have so many people in journalism who are not graduates of mass comm, and they are doing wonderfully well. I don't have any problem with that. But what is important is that you must learn the rules, get a minimum of a diploma so that you can understand what we are talking about. Know the 4Ws and age, know how to write, know when to hold back, know when to publish, know when you are libeling somebody, because it's not everything that you get that you want to publish. So my advice, if you want to become a journalist, get that kind of certification. It's very, very important, and find somewhere where you can learn the ropes and understand the ethics. Unfortunately, again, we have a situation in our country where people become journalists. I do media training for people, and when I ask them who has seen the ethics of profession before, 3/4 of the people in the room who are practicing for years have never seen the ethics. Whereas this is something that is supposed to be a guiding principle. So my advice is, we welcome you if you want to become a journalist, but learn the rules. Get a minimum of a diploma so they can prepare you for the long run.
Also, we obviously, before we can practice as journalists here, and we obviously would need to know and pass exams in media law. So at least you know
Yes.
libel,
Yes.
defamation, and all of that. And know what to do, just like you said, know what to write, at when, and
Yes.
stuff like that. Yeah. So you are a practitioner and a career development specialist, and also a part-time lecturer. Have
Yes.
you do you take your students on this part of this subject as part of the media industry itself? Do they know about media laws in Nigeria and indeed Africa?
Of course. I went to the university in 1982 to 1985, and I did media law.
Hmm.
And before my own time, media law has always been there. The books by Fred Mumu and so many other things. So it's been there. The roots have been there because some of these things were translated from wherever we got this report. The roots have been there. So media law is taught. It's just that sometimes people disregard some of these things when they begin to practice. So the law has been there. It is covered. I teach a course at the Nigerian Institute of Journalism. It's online journalism, and I'm teaching the people. Say, look, the fact that you're online journalism does not preclude you from following the ethics of the profession. There are things that you cannot publish. There are things that are offensive. For example, according to the ethics of practice of journalism in Nigeria, somebody who is 18, you can't use his or her face in any publication or broadcast if that thing has anything to do with violence or whatever. How do you explain that somebody was raped? A 10-year-old girl was raped, and you put the photograph all over the newspapers? It's unethical, Or maybe, for example, there was a fire incident and people were burned, and you wake up in the morning and you are seeing burned body all over the place. So these are the things that the ethics guide against it. You also don't invade people's privacy. You can't say because you can get any gadget, you invade people's privacy and you begin to publish things that you should not publish about them. You can be sued. There are times that you get even some facts you have to hold back. So the laws are there, and sometimes people have been taken to court. I know of, for example, let's make this very real. Many years ago, there used to be a magazine called This Week. They libeled somebody, and that person went to court, got a judgment against them, and eventually it came to forfeit their property, which was the judgment, and that was the end of that magazine. So the point I'm making is that when you violate the law, there's a lot of consequence. Even there are media organizations that have been taken to court because of what they publish, and the judgment is awarded against them, and they pay heavily for it. So there's repercussions for publishing falsehood, and these are the things that the law is guiding against. And people have also been jailed. People have been held in detention. So there's a lot of repercussion, and you must know those laws. So again, what I would say that media owners, as we employ people, you need to give them this law. They should read this law and understand it. Without understanding it, they'll just be practicing like a blind person. And if they incur libel cases, that organization is at a risk. So you publish a story that didn't sell you 100,000, and you're ending up paying millions. What is the worth of that? So you must
Exactly.
really look, it's very, very important.
Hmm. Okay, we're going to go on a quick break, and we'll come back and obviously zero in on journalism and elections coverage. Okay,
Mhm.
so stay with us, and we just go on a quick break, and we'll be back shortly.
Thank you.
Hello there, and welcome back to the Way Show. It's been a very educative and engaging topic. We've been having a chat with Lekan Otufodunrin, who is a media expert, a journalist, and also a media career development expert. So he's been talking so much about media law, about what it takes to be a journalist, especially in Nigeria and Africa. So it's been really engaging, really educational, and we thank you once again for joining us for this show. Now, before we went on the break, I was talking about elections and elections coverage. Now we've got an Electoral Act of 2020, so 2010, and obviously the NDC code regarding the coverage of elections. We've got two elections coming up quite soon, one in Edo State and the governorship, and the next one in Ondo State. How prepared are our journalists to cover and obviously to give us the right coverage for these two elections? I'm talking about print and electronic now, obviously with the online platforms.
Well, I think the media is well prepared. I mean, it's a familiar terrain. We covered the election nationwide, statewide, and this is just even in two places. So there's uh, enough time to prepare. There's enough personnel to deploy to cover, and they have been trained. There have been quite a number of media training along the line. Just a few days ago, the International Press Center in Nigeria organized a training for journalists in Edo and Ondo State about election coverage. And we are talking about all these issue about safety. We are talking about the electoral law. We're talking about their relationship with INEC. We're asking for guarantees from INEC, how prepared they are. We're asking about accreditation of journalists. So all these questions are being asked. And like I mentioned, journalists are being thinking about how to be security conscious. You don't say because you're a journalist, you go into secluded places, you go in a team, and you ensure that you also follow the rules. There are things that you should not do even as a journalist. The fact that a journalist does not mean that you also violate the regulation. If there is a lockdown at a point in time, you must respect it, but you must also carry your tag, you must wear your inscription and whatever. So I think journalists are well prepared, and I see that this election is going to be very, very clean because in Edo State and Ondo State, it's going to be very clean, and all eyes are in this state, and there'll be enough time to cover. You know, if it was a national election, you deploy people, but now we just have Edo State starting. So each local government is going to be manned because again, the stakes are very high in Edo State. You have an incumbent governor and a former national chairman of the party, literally uh, trying to take control of that particular state. And so there's going to be a lot of security. So we are prepared, and we can just hope that the best man will win. You know, the election campaign is going on. All the sites are being reflected. Every day you hear stories about who is the godfather, who is being taken over, and whatever. So there's a lot of reports about those states, and it's going to be a photo finish, so to speak. It's going to be a battle area, and whoever wins should be ready for whatever. So I think we are prepared. There's enough information going around, and again, I remember that there was supposed to be a debate that didn't hold or whatever, maybe one of the parties, whatever. But notwithstanding, there's enough information out there, and I can see that on that day election, there will be enough coverage. Journalists are going to be there to cover, and we hope again, like we said, that there will be enough protection, even for and the transmission of results needs to be done in a way that we don't have a situation where we are waiting for too long. In an electronic name, you should not be doing what we are doing. You know, you hold an election in one local government, even in the capital city, and you are waiting for the election. Again, one thing that we need to also be know, there is concern about who is announcing results. If, for example, a journalist is covering this polling booth where maybe the governor has voted, that election result will be declared in that place. That result is only for that booth, not for the whole state. So at that point, when the INEC person is announcing it, that result has been announced for that booth, not the total result. So again, journalists must know at what point. So we should not also begin to report fake results or begin to show trends that are not indicative. So for example, you have 10 local governments. I have results from 2 local governments. I say somebody is ahead. Well, it's ahead in 2 local governments, but sometimes the headlines can be very deceptive. You know, so we must also put context into what we are reporting. If you have 10 local governments, you must be able to tell them that, okay, for example, the remaining 2 local governments are expecting this figure of the total voters are this. You cannot obfuscate this. So we must not fire up people's imagination, and when the thing doesn't go their way, they begin to quarrel. That is the responsibility of journalists when they're covering election.
You've been in journalism for over 30 years now, and I'm sure even whilst I was practicing journalism in Nigeria, we didn't have enough women practicing as of that
Okay.
time.
Yeah.
From that time when you started till now, would you say you've seen an increase in women in journalism, and obviously not just in women in journalism, but women at the helm, at the, hierarchy of journalism in Nigeria?
But the question you asked is very interesting because it's something that I'm very, involved with. Apart from media career development, we also run an organization called Journalists for Christ, and we have a project which is we have a project that it's about, we call it gender leadership monitor. Every year we monitor about women in journalism, and one of the findings is it's a confirmation that we don't have enough women. I think there have been improvements back from when we are coming from. There have been improvements. I mean, you have. I mean, I did a report many years ago. I mean, what can't women do in journalism? I was able to pinpoint that every big position, every leadership position in journalism, women have held them. So we have women publishers, women MDs, editor in chief, editor daily, the managers of radio stations. We have founders of radio stations. So we have more women, but it can be better. As I speak to you, for example, as we speak to you, there's perhaps only one woman who is a daily editor of a newspaper in Nigeria. That is not good enough.
Wow.
But the debate
No.
is that, do you just give this position to women because you want to do gender balance? What women are asking her for is equity, not necessarily equality, equity. Give me the opportunity to showcase that I have the capacity to do this. And if I can do it, forget whether I'm a woman and give me that position. So, but I think there are more women, but we need more women playing more strategic roles. When women are not at their end of affairs, when media houses are not gender conscious, again, it's easy to be gender conscious. How do you explain that you have some media houses, for example, in their whole management, there's no woman at the top. So there's no woman among the three editors. There's no woman who is a line editor. When the whole management meeting, there's no woman voice in that meeting. I mean, how do you reflect the reality of what you are covering? Sometimes it's not deliberate, but it's important that we are gender conscious. When we are gender conscious, we know when to address uh, some of these things. You know, and my own concept for women journalists is that again, they must put their best up. I always counsel them: don't give women excuse. You know, for example, I used to be a Sunday editor in a newspaper, for example, and when we are producing, and some ladies will come and say, "So I need to go. You know, my family is back at home." And I say, "No problem, you can go." But when we are deciding who is going to manage this paper, when people like us are moving, you remember that you need to take care of your kids, and so you can't fit into this position. So that's a major problem. Again, we must also take it. We must not hold it against women. You know, a female journalist told me, said, "Look, what you need to be a journalist is your brain, not your anatomy." So we must not also pigeonhole them to say they cannot do this thing. So it's important. We have seen fantastic women writers, fantastic women editors. We have, I mean, the late Mrs. Reni Oyo was editor in chief, was MD of News Agency of Nigeria. Funke Egbemode, until recently, before she became a commissioner, had been editor in the Sun. She was MD of Telegraph. You had Dr. Doyin Abiola, Amma Ogan. So you can count fantastic journalists, Ellen Ezekiel, that have performed. So, I mean, it should not be a restriction. But the problem is that sometimes there are managers who are also uh, unnecessarily uh, stereotyping women. They just assume that they can't do it, and so they don't give them that chance to do it. So that's saying equity. Equity means give men and women equal chances to prove their message. You know, and we are seeing even in the online media, we are beginning to see that women are playing their own role. They are setting up their own platform and they're excelling. So what we are saying is give equity, let the women play it. Don't give a woman a position because she's a woman. Give her because she can do it, and there are enough women to do it. But even when you don't have it, be conscious. Don't have a management. Don't have an editorial board that doesn't have a woman. I'm aware that of a newspaper house where the entire board members, where they write about the opinion of the newspaper, all of them were men. Until somebody
Hmm.
says, hey, how can you do this? All you need is just a female member.
Hmm.
I just think companies to have a female member so that you can have a voice. We are talking about issues. For you to reflect reality, you must have all the perspectives. If all of you are men, then you may just be saying things from your own perspective. So being gender conscious is very important. And I'm aware that the Relational Center for Journalism is advocating that media organizations should have gender policy. When you have a gender policy, you'll be able to address some of these concerns. It should not be a disadvantage because somebody has a baby that will not become an editor. In fact, in a digital world, most of these things can be done even when you're even sitting down on your desk. So you must
Yeah.
use technology to also give people that opportunity.
So before we round up, I just have this question for you. In 1859, the Reverend Henry Thompson started the way rolling Yoruba, and obviously it set the tone for print
Okay.
media in Nigeria. And obviously, Albert Macaulay, the great Zik, started the West African pilots in the 30s and whatever. And these papers, these newspapers, became a voice for nationalism in Nigeria, a voice for independence, a voice for self-rule, a voice for leadership, and it went, down the line onto the Tribune and Punch. Would you say that there is a Nigerian newspaper or probably a Nigerian media outfit that is still keeping this fire burning, providing leadership, um, and providing that searchlight on government and providing a platform for development of Nigeria itself, uh, where Nigeria should be as a giant, proper giant of Africa. Would you say we are really, as journalists, our ancestors actually passed this back into us? Would you say we're actually also following in the paths in the lights that shine for us?
Okay, so I mean, when you talk about the 1859 and those early publications, they were driven by nationalism. They were driven by the pray for independence, and
Mm,
over a period of time, Nigeria being Nigeria. Uh, I'm not aware, maybe except in minor cases, most papers are set up with best of intention. You've had newspapers. I'm trying to remember which paper says truth in defense of freedom. And most papers understand that without a good Nigerian, you can't even do business.
mm,
If you must have, I mean, if you don't have a good government, if you don't have development, the environment cannot even be there to start with. So
mm,
I think that except when we derail, every media organization is set up with that zeal to hold government accountable, to demand for good governance. So I think for the major newspapers, except on these days when people just start up, maybe just online, whatever. For people who are set up in the past, radio stations or whatever, it's with the best of intentions. I mean, in Lagos, for example, now we have a women radio. It's women for women and their families. I mean, very noble. Listen, you have Inspiration FM, you have private radio stations, you have newspapers that are every day asking government, you promised us this, you didn't do that. So I would think, by and large, the media in Nigeria is very patriotic. We want good governance. We are asking for it. Sometimes we are misunderstood, but we keep asking for what is good. Because if you have good governance, this country will be better. We've had years of mismanagement, and we can't continue to allow this to continue. So I think, and I have no doubt that media organizations in Nigeria have good intentions. Some of them may have political interest. It's another hand or there, which is also very legitimate, you know. But
mm,
what I always tell people is that it doesn't matter whether somebody is a politician holding a platform or whatever. What you can't do in one, the other can do. That's what I tell people. So if you also understand how they are set up, you also understand how to take what they took. But again, I also think that ownership is sometimes exaggerated. Even the most political paper in Nigeria that I know, when you go to read some of the columns, you see the best of intention. You see government being asked to be held accountable. you see us asking that we can't continue like this. There are many things we're not doing right. And we also see that government sometimes they listen to us. We have editorials every day. We have news commentary that asking government to do the right thing. We have fantastic program. The plurality of media has made it possible for the government to be held accountable. But one advice I want to give is that we need to also focus more attention on the state and local government. There's so much focus on federal government, which is good. But at those levels, things are happening that we need to pay more attention to. And I also think that is where even the online media is doing very well. Many of them are engaged in fact checking. There is project tracking. We are able to tell you what you are not doing. We are able to identify senators who are in the assembly who are not moving any motion. We are able to find consultative projects that have been abandoned over the years. And so let's give it to the Nigerian media. We're doing very well. We can do better, but we also need a better environment. Unfortunately, we are also a victim of the economy. We have situations where journalists are not paid. And when journalists are not paid, you open them to all kinds of abuses. And that is why Mr. Femi, for instance, they can stand up and just rant all and just be saying those things and saying, look, I report you to your publisher. Go and report yourself to the publisher. I mean, that was very, very confidential, and I don't see reason for that. So journalists have to be taken more seriously. We carry ourselves with some respect, and that's why we are asking for journalists to be very ethical. If you are very ethical, you carry yourself. Even the ethics talks about how you carry yourself, the kind of knowledge that you bring to bear, the kind of questions that you ask people. They are not necessarily patronizing. You are asking the right question, and the public can judge. So I want to give that within the limits of what we have, we are doing our best, but we know that we can do better.
Thank you so much for that very insightful end to the show today. And it's been Mr. Lekan Otufodunrin, who's a journalist and also a media expert. That's what I'll call it. Please, it's the website for his media development career organization is called mediacareerng.org. So please try as much as possible to log in. If you're watching, you're very interested in what he's saying today, what he has said. There's so much resources in this website. So it's mediacareerng.org. The media career ng one word .org. Okay. So please, if you're watching, you want to know more about what he's doing, go on that website. Thank you so much, editor, for coming on to the show.
Somebody was saying if we organize master classes and things like that. Like you said, that website will provide you a lot of information.
All the information.
Media career. And if you follow us on Twitter, no, there's no S, it's Media Career NG. No S. I'm saying Media Careers. No, so it's Media Career NG.org. So there's no S in it. And on Twitter, it's Media Career NGR. If you follow us, and so it's Media Career NG.
Okay, so media career. That's
exactly.
Yeah,
so
that's been updated now. Okay.
And then I'm going to watch the YouTube channel again and provide some answers to some of the questions that I'm seeing that have been coming up. So once again, I want to thank you for this, and also want to encourage you to keep doing this. I mean, this is also very liberating that we can do this. We don't have to set up a station somewhere and invest millions to be able to do this. But provide the world is really a global village, and that's what this is proving. Thank you.
Thank you so much, editor. Thank you, and all the best with your platform. And we will continue to obviously keep an eye on what you're doing, and obviously be talking to our viewers and giving them updates on what you are doing. Thank you for coming on the show, and so you do have a wonderful week ahead of you.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. And so that's the way show today. You've heard it all from Mr. Lekan Otufodunrin, who is a media expert and a journalist of repute in Nigeria. So spoken about quite a lot of stuff today about media. Please keep watching this show. On this show, we're packaging something for Nigeria's Independence Day on October the 1st. That's 60th anniversary of 60th independence anniversary of Nigeria. On October the 1st, please just And stay tuned. I will be bringing a panel of people to discuss Nigeria, the way forward, and we'll be talking about a lot of stuff. Just keep watching and tell people about the Way Show. Like us on Instagram, like all our episodes, and please do subscribe to this channel. My name is Wole, and special thanks to my colleague Yomi, who is behind the scene, making sure I am talking to you live today. So same time, 8 o'clock next week on Sunday. We hope to be with you. Please do stay safe at this time. And thank you so much for everyone that's made a comment on the show. Every one of you. I just want to say many thanks for coming and watching the show. Sandra Sylvester, Ex-Basher, Temi Tokwe, Sulaiman, Sami Emmanuel, Molat, Ichima, um, Doreen, um, ah, Bright, Onwa, Fifi, Olajumoke, Okola, every one of you. Sorry if I'm not mentioning your name. Apologies. Please forgive me. There's loads of people here today, and they've come in to listen to what we have got to say and to listen to the gentleman that came on the show, Mr. Lekan Otufodunrin. Thank you for watching. Hopefully next week we'll be here with someone special again. I'll be talking about another issue. So do have yourself a wonderful week, and please stay safe. Good night.